So at the moment in our business, for every pound that we spend on our marketing, we generate about two, three, five, or 10 pounds on the back end of our business. And I'm curious, if you're watching this today and you're running a B2B company, do you know what those metrics are for your business, or would it be kind of guesswork at the moment? So what I want to talk about today is how you can do that, how you can build a growth machine for your business rather than just feeling like you're doing marketing. And I think this is going to be a particularly helpful video for you if you're a business, a B2B business that's doing between 500K and maybe 10 million in annual revenue. Obviously, you could be slightly smaller or slightly larger than that, and I think this will benefit you either way. But that's sort of the sweet spot of who I think this can really, really help. And I want to use some metrics from my company to illustrate my point of how you can build a growth machine. I'm then going to talk a bit about the difference between what I call doing marketing and having a growth machine. And then I'm going to just walk you through the step by step of how you can do this for your business. And finally, give you a calculator that you can use to plug in the numbers from your business and map out what you need to be hitting in terms of your ROI metrics. So it's going to be hopefully a really valuable video for you. And let's dive straight in, shall we? So in October 2024, which again, this is just a pretty normal month for our business. This wasn't an exceptional result for us at all. We spent about £11,000 on our marketing, and that's total in terms of our ad spend, suppliers, softwares, everything was about £11,000. And so far we've collected about £27,000 worth of cash from that £11,000. And this is a couple of months later that we're talking. Now, that doesn't take into account the total revenue, and I'll talk about why I haven't measured that in a moment. So it's only talking about the cash that we've got so far. The total revenue from those contracts is likely to be a lot more than the 27,000, probably double or triple that 27,000. It's not talking about renewals and upsells from existing clients. And just bear in mind, we have a really nice profit margin, which allows us a bit of bandwidth and a bit of leeway when it comes to our marketing and returns on marketing. And I want to talk about that more later on in the video as well, because it's pretty important. Like I said, I took a pretty normal month. This is not really an exceptional month. We've been doing this for more than 3 years now, and it's been pretty much performing like this month on month. Some months are a lot better, some months are slightly worse, but this is a pretty average month for us. Like I said, I've intentionally used cash, and the reason that I've done that is my audience, for the most part, and the clients that I work with, typically are bootstrapped B2B businesses, founder owned, founder operated. And so you work on cash. I know in your head, you think about cash. I know I do. And so that's why I've talked about cash here rather than giving you total revenue numbers. And I think it's more helpful and probably more realistic for you as well. I honestly believe that there's nothing exceptional about the content that I create or the type of advertising we do or the way that we do sales or anything like that. I believe this is achievable for pretty much every B2B company. Like if you've already found product market fit and you're already doing 500K to 10 million plus in annual revenue, and you've got customers that buy your stuff and like you, I think this is achievable for your business. So I want to move on and spend a bit of time talking about the difference between doing marketing and having a growth machine. And I'm going to talk first about this idea of doing marketing. This is something I've been talking about quite a lot over the last few years. It's very common in B2B companies, and it shows up in a few different ways. So if you're one of these larger businesses, let's say you're doing 10 million plus of annual revenue, you're probably spending a bunch of money on marketing. So you probably have a pretty big marketing team, maybe 5 to 10 people in your marketing team. You might be working with a couple of different agencies or consultants. You probably got some fancy software, etc. It's probably generating you some results, but it might feel like hard work, and you also don't know exactly where those results are coming from. And my guess is it's probably all operating in silos. So you've got your Google ads over here, you've got your content over here, you've got a lead magnet here, you paid to redesign your website over here, but you can't actually work, things are not working together. You can't tie back what you're doing to results. And so it becomes really impossible to determine what your ROI is. And in smaller companies, what this tends to look like in practice is you're probably still quite reliant on referrals and word of mouth to grow your business. You might be experimenting with some marketing and spending a bit of money on some outbound on LinkedIn or, an agency to do this over here, but it doesn't feel strategic and you don't feel like you can really invest money in marketing and know that you're going to get returns on the other side. And most importantly, and this is true in both cases, you don't know what is working. So you're doing a bunch of stuff, you don't know what is and isn't working. And probably what you're doing isn't working, in my experience. So what this might look like in practice is like, let's say you're spending money on a Google Ads agency and you're spending money on Google Ads. Or you're creating LinkedIn content and maybe you've got someone to help you create that content. You probably are spending money on lead magnets, Score App. You've probably got a Score App quiz that, someone convinced you to buy this software Score App and you felt it was going to solve all of your growth problems. Honestly, if I have another conversation with another business owner who has a Score App that nobody's filling out, I think I'm going to lose my mind. Maybe you bought a fancy new CRM like HubSpot or something like that. And you spent a load of money to redesign your website. You spent money on salespeople and business development people. And you're putting all of this money in, but you just don't know where the returns are coming from or if you're generating returns at all. So the big difference between this and building a growth machine, and I don't know, maybe this resonates with you if you're watching the video. If it does, we should definitely have a conversation about how we can help you grow your business, because this is exactly the sort of customer that I think I can really help, or the type of business that I think I can really help. But anyway, what you really want is you want a growth machine. So naturally, you're still going to have to spend money. Usually you're going to have to spend time, energy, and resources to grow your business, right? It doesn't just happen without that. But the difference is everything is strategic in the growth machine. So you know exactly what type of returns you're getting. You're actually tracking the metrics at each stage of the process, and you know what type of returns you should get on the money that you're spending, which then allows you to scale it up if you want to. All of the different parts work together. So let's say you're getting traffic sources from Google Ads or LinkedIn content, which is the same as in the doing marketing example. The difference here is that it's working together. So you're getting traffic from Google Ads and maybe then you're targeting it on LinkedIn, or you're getting people to your website from your LinkedIn content, and then you're retargeting those people bottom of funnel using some Google display ads or YouTube or whatever. Where you're getting your traffic doesn't really matter, but the key is that everything here is working together, and it works more like an assembly line rather than a whole bunch of things operating in silos. So you buy or you earn traffic by creating content, or you just buy it by running ads, or you do both. You have the growth assets, which basically take that traffic and turn that traffic into leads. And then you have a great system or a sales system for taking those leads and turning them into revenue. And so you can see in this example, it works like an assembly line where each step feeds into the next step. Usually there are less parts overall to your system. So usually there's less stuff going on. There's less noise. You can have a smaller marketing team. You can probably spend less overall if you want to, but typically you're achieving far better results overall. And you should be able to put in $1 at one end and get 3, 5, or 10 or more at the other end on a consistent basis. And if you can't do that, in my opinion, you're still stuck in the stage of doing marketing. So you should be able to put your money in various places and get significant returns on that money on the other side. So this is, I think, a big mindset shift for a lot of businesses, which is like, you've got to move from this phase of doing marketing and you've got to build yourself a growth machine. Otherwise, it's going to be really difficult to scale your business. So what I want to do is talk about how you can actually do this in practice and what would be the step-by-step process I recommend you follow. So step 1 is something we call product market fit hypothesis. So this just means get clear on who you are speaking to, your ideal customer profile, the transformation you are providing those people. So where are they before working with you? Where are they after working with you? And all products and services provide transformation. That's true if you're selling, an $100 widget, or whether you're selling $1 million worth of consulting contracts. There's always going to be a before and after for that individual, for that company that you're working with. And then finally, you want to get clear on what your unique insights are. What's your unique narrative that you can bring to the marketplace? And you have to have that. I think in 2026, you need a unique narrative or you're not going to be able to grow your business. We call this market resonance. If you have a narrative that really deeply connects with the audience, that's a topic for another video. I've got loads of content talking about that. But long story short, for the purposes of today, you need that in order for this to work. If you're not sure what your narrative is, speak with your customers, get insights, gather insights from the marketplace and figure out what is unique about your solution or your positioning or your narrative. If you don't have anything unique about your narrative, then you need to come up with one pretty quickly. Secondly, you've got your product market fit hypothesis. we then need to pick our traffic sources. So for most B2B companies, that's probably going to be a combination of LinkedIn and or some kind of search marketing, whether that's Google, Bing. Obviously, at the moment, AI search is a big part of that as well. And you have to ask yourself the question, where are your customers hanging out? Are they using search engines to find your solution? Or do you think that they'll be more likely to discover you on a platform like social media? And then just pick one or two traffic sources and really double down on those and aim to master those. So how this works in our business, so we have a process we call the product market fit hypothesis process. We do it for our company. We've done it for our company. We have a workbook that we take people through. When we work with external companies and with our partners, we do this on a workshop. We walk them through a workshop where we articulate what their product market fit hypothesis should be. And then in our business, our primary traffic sources are LinkedIn, and you might be seeing this on LinkedIn, or YouTube is our other sort of primary traffic source at the moment. So the majority is coming from LinkedIn, and then we get a handful of leads and new business from YouTube, and then we get referrals and word of mouth and stuff like that. But we're not relying on the referrals for growth. But the majority is leads that we're generating ourselves. So that is our traffic source or sources in our business. Now, the third piece of the puzzle is growth assets. So you're getting some traffic and attention, but what you need to be able to do is take that traffic and attention and turn it into potential customers for your business or leads for your business. Now, we call this process growth assets. So we need some sort of marketing content to do that job for us. I mean, obviously, we can speak to every single one of the leads or every single person that visits our website or whatever it is. It's not very efficient. We want assets that do that for us. So typically for B2B companies, you're going to have case studies. If you're a B2B company and you don't have clear case studies that are easy to find on your website right now, you've got a problem. That's a big gap in your growth machine. Get yourself some case studies. Articulate where the companies were before. Articulate where they now are after having worked with you, and show that transformation. Again, this is not about talking up yourself necessarily. It's about articulating the transformation that you're providing to other businesses. Now, other marketing assets would look like sales letters. We often do video sales letters, long form content to kind of break things down in a bit more detail. This is where people can start to understand your unique narrative and your approach to whatever it is that you're doing, wherever your subject matter expertise is. And then you're basically going to use the traffic sources to drive traffic to your growth assets and see if they work. If they do work, they'll be generating you leads and sales opportunities. You'll get people, for example, if you're creating LinkedIn content, you'll get people DMing you on LinkedIn saying, hey, can we chat about your thing? Or you'll get someone going to your website and booking in a call, or you'll get someone who follows you and then you start a conversation with them and then it turns into a lead. So there's lots of different ways it can look like in practice. But fundamentally, if they're working, they will be generating you opportunities for your business. So again, in our business, this is what it looks like. We have on our website, we have, for example, a breakdown of our growth process or our growth framework. We call it the Market Resonance Framework. This is about a 25-minute long video. I've recorded it more than a year ago now, I think, and it's still being used today. So it's been watched probably thousands of times today. And it does a lot of the heavy lifting in terms of educating our audience, in terms of how we think about growth, how we think about our area of expertise, and then what we might be able to do to potentially help them. We also have lots of social proof, case studies, testimonials, video testimonials, etc. So if people want to see our track record and what people say about working with us, they can check those out on our website. And so, for example, someone might see a video like this one on LinkedIn, and it might cause them to want to check us out a little bit more. They go to our website, they think, oh, okay, that's actually quite an interesting way of thinking about growth. I like this idea of market resonance. Let's check and see if these guys have a credible track record. Okay, they do. They've got hundreds of case studies and testimonials. Maybe we should have a conversation with them. And so that's how the growth assets work. You're using platforms to get traffic and attention. So you're buying traffic, or you're earning that traffic by creating organic content, getting them to see your growth assets. And then comes step 4, which is your sales system. So this often, and if you're one of those companies that I referenced earlier, this probably isn't your bottleneck right now, right? So, most of the companies I work with and speak with are pretty good at sales already. If I was to bring you, let's say 100 inbound leads tomorrow, my guess is you'd be able to close quite a few of them. But often there are opportunities to improve this slightly overall. So this probably isn't the biggest bottleneck for your business, let's just be honest, but there will be ways to improve. Let's say you're closing at 20% now, if you can take that to 25% over time, that does have quite a significant impact on your growth machine overall. So the fourth thing, optimize your sales system. And then the fifth thing is track your metrics at each stage. So track your total traffic and impressions and your engagement on the platforms that you're using. Track the number of leads that you're generating. Track the number of demos that you're generating. Track the number of new clients that you're generating. Track how much cash you are collecting from those clients. And then you'll be able to calculate things like your return on your marketing spend. It's amazing to me how many businesses can't really do this on a high level. So, you might be running Google ads over here and you're creating content over here and you're tracking metrics in platform. You know how many impressions and clicks you're getting on Google, but you don't know how much revenue that's potentially leading to your business. So that's why you've got to look at it as a growth machine. Okay. It's got to be traffic, like leads and conversion, sales, and then cash collected. That's the only way to think about it, in my opinion. And then the sixth piece is you can scale up if you like. So once you're tracking all of these metrics and they're profitable, then you can use this to scale up. So if you know it costs me, let's say £500 to have a demo in our calendar with our sales team, and on average, we make £10,000 per customer, and let's say we close 1 in 4 of these calls, that means it costs £2,000 to generate £10,000. So that's a pretty good return overall. And if you have the operational capacity to work with all of those clients, then you might as well get as many demos as you can in the calendar and sign as many clients as you can. Like I said, just to walk you through the funnel for our business. So again, once people have looked at the assets, they might book in a call with us, and they can do that via the website if they want to stop doing marketing and start growing. At the moment, I'm conducting most of these calls. And then we basically do these audit and action plan calls where we go through the potential customer's business. We kind of audit what they're doing well, what they could be doing better, kind of against this same idea of the growth system. And then we just give them some great advice and we explain how our process works. If they want to work with us, they want to work with us. If not, they don't, and that's completely fine. But as you can see, this book's quite a lot of calls for us at the moment. This is from March 2026. So that is how to do this in your own business. And I think the key is, as I said, think of this like a machine. Think of it like a growth engine where it takes someone from their first touch point with you, which is usually traffic on some sort of platform, and then takes them through to cash and revenue for your business. Now, I've got a bonus for you today as well, which is that you can use this calculator to project the outcomes for your business or project what you should be targeting in your business. And let me just show you a bit about how that works. This is an exercise we do with a lot of our partners. And the reason we do that is that it helps us illustrate a point, which is that the North Star metric of any growth campaign, in my opinion, should be this ratio of gross profit to customer acquisition cost, meaning for every dollar that I spend on acquiring customers, how many dollars do I generate of profit for my business? So we want this to be at least 3 to 1. So for every dollar that we spend on marketing and growth, we want to get at least $3 of gross profit. And I think it's important to think about things in terms of profit rather than just revenue, because then you can be sure that you're actually scaling up profitably. And it kind of shows you, and this is a good exercise because it shows you the levers that you can pull in your business to achieve a better return from your growth machine. So whenever we work with a new partner, what we're aiming to do is build them a machine that can achieve an outcome, something like this. So for example, let's say you make about $10,000 on average per customer, and you have a gross profit margin of 60%. So that's not talking about all of your overheads, your softwares and stuff like that. It's not talking about your marketing spend. We're just talking about how much does it cost you to deliver that solution. So for a typical kind of consulting services business, we'd be looking at something like 50 to 80% here. For, a software product, usually it's 90% plus because it doesn't cost you a lot to deliver on the solution that you're offering. And then you're going to plug in your number of roughly how much you want to spend on marketing over the next 12 months. So using these metrics here, what this is going to help you calculate is how much you can afford to spend in order to acquire a new customer. So let's say we just want to achieve this sort of hygiene standard, which is the 3 to 1 return that I talked to you about. So in order to do that, if we're spending $36,000, then we're going to need 18 new customers in order to achieve that 3 to 1 return. which means if we're spending $36,000, we can afford to spend up to about $2,000 in order to acquire a new customer. That's going to generate us about $180,000 of new revenue. And then the gross profit is going to be $108,000 in gross profit. So our return overall on our marketing spend is 5. So for every dollar we're getting 5 of revenue, and then we're getting $3 of gross profit. So hopefully you're tracking with that and it makes sense. Now, the fun part about this is it allows you to play with some of your numbers and make the machine more profitable overall. So for example, let's say we can increase our gross profit margin by finding some efficiency in the business, and we can take that to 80%. We now can generate less customers to get the same returns. So now we're able to generate 13.5 customers rather than I think it was 18 previously to get the 3-to-1 returns. If we can keep our customer acquisition costs around about the same, it's going to be between these two numbers here. So we're actually going to be getting $4 for every dollar that we spend on marketing. So that's one way we can increase the profitability of our growth machine. Another way is to make more per customer. So have more services and more offers to sell them, or just to charge more. And funnily enough, a lot of the businesses that I work with, that's my advice, is they should be charging more for what they're offering. So let's just say, for the sake of argument, we can take that up to $15,000 per customer. So now the numbers are starting to look really quite tasty here, right? So let's say we can achieve this $1,200 customer acquisition cost. So we can spend $1,200 to achieve a new customer. We can get 30 new customers for the same marketing spend. And we're actually getting a 10-to-1. So for every dollar we're putting in, we're getting $10 of gross profit. And we're actually generating $450,000 of new revenue for the business. So these are some of the metrics that you can pull, or the levers that you can pull, or the metrics that you can tweak. Really, the main ones are going to be how much you make per customer, your gross profit on that revenue, and then how much you're spending to acquire a new customer. So obviously, if we can reduce how much we're spending, we can get more customers for the same marketing spend. And then if I'm working in this business right now, and I'm seeing that we're generating a 10-to-1 return on our marketing spend, I would probably think about increasing that marketing spend and spending more and generating more. And in this example here, if we're still getting the 10-to-1, for example, we're now $625K of new revenue on the marketing spend that we have. So hopefully that's helpful. I think this is a really good exercise. I recommend you map this out for your business. This is something that we do with pretty much all of our new partners. What I'll do is I can send you the link to this calculator. You can make a copy and map out the numbers for your own business. Just write a comment on the post on LinkedIn or send me a DM, and I'm happy to send this out to you. So I hope this was a useful video. If you want my help to do this in your business, or if you want to see if you're a good fit to work with us, and we're quite selective of who we operate with and who we work with. But if you're interested in that, book a call with me. I'd love to have a chat with you. I'd love to learn more about your business and see if we can help you grow. Thanks for watching.